Welcome back, everybody. This is the video, A New Era in Foreign Policy, Part 2. A number of new vocabulary terms, so read through those to understand and then move on. So, U.S. intervention in the world under President Bill Clinton, what did that look like? There were a number of events that took place. One in Somalia, another in Haiti, Rwanda, and then with the breakup of Yugoslavia. So in Somalia, there was civil war in this country, and eventually the United States and eventually the UN, they intervene with troops and food. But the United States does suffer troop casualties and exits rather quickly. It's not an all-out war where the United States gets involved, but it's a very small force that goes in as opposed to what we would have seen with the Persian Gulf War. In Haiti, there were free elections that took place, and when the country elected its president, the military ousted the president with a military coup. And this led to a number of refugees headed and arriving in the United States. Many of them were sent back to Haiti by the United States. The next action taken by the US was to restore the once removed president of Haiti. This was accomplished, but there certainly were long-term economic problems that continued beyond his restoration. In Rwanda, this is an example of ethnic cleansing that took place. Hutus, an ethnic group in Rwanda, began murdering another ethnic group, the Tutsis. Nothing was done for maybe a year-ish until the UN finally intervened in 1995, about a year after the uh, ethnic cleansing or genocide uh, started. Also in the 1990s, there was the breakup of Southeast European country Yugoslavia. They experienced the fall of their leader, and then on top of that, the collapse of communism in their nation. And what this did was it really held the country together to have those two things in place. But with the fall of each of those, that led to a lot of infighting within the nation. There were a lot of ethnic and religious rivalries, and this led to ethnic cleansing within this region. Ultimately, the United States and NATO were rather silent on this, and the fighting went on and on for multiple years until NATO finally got involved and shut down the fighting. So, what to take away from these multiple events? Each one of these was very localized events, all happening really within a particular country. And the US involvement was minimal, or the United States, the US involvement was minimal, and it either dedicated a small number of forces to the conflict, or it went through international organizations to try and solve it, such as the UN or NATO. As for the U.S. and its relationship to the two countries in the Middle East, the United States is very pro-Israel. Keep in mind that many Middle Eastern nations are not, as we found out or easily saw with the Camp David Accords. Egypt, if you recall, Egypt recognized Israel after that meeting between Israel and Egypt, brokered by President Jimmy Carter. But this is the exception of Middle Eastern countries. The United States was part of the Persian Gulf War, um, but the ever since the United States, despite giving help and despite the favorable actions at the time regarding the Persian Gulf War. Ultimately, Middle Eastern countries don't want the United States in the Middle East. So the longer the United States sticks around, the more dislike tends to grow in the Middle East. That is seen through the growth of terrorism through groups like Al Qaeda and its leader at the time, Osama bin Laden. He and they take action against Western countries, and we see some of this religious based terrorism grow. In 1993, there's a truck bomb that exploded at the beneath the World Trade Center, killing 6 people, and it injures approximately 1,000. And then there are some other attacks that occur, such as car bombs at American embassies in Tanzania and Kenya, which kill and injure hundreds and then thousands. Also led by Osama bin Laden. And then in 2000, Al Qaeda bombed the USS Cole. But the Israeli Palestinian conflict is one of the main reasons why Middle Eastern countries do not support Israel, do not recognize Israel as a country, and therefore dislike the United States and its support of Israel. What this map doesn't quite show is the amount of land that is Palestinian territory that continues to be under the control of Israel. As for the United States and the world, really, one of the economic policies or trends, rather, that is really taking hold across the globe is the idea and the embracing of free trade. And during President Clinton's tenure, during his term in 1994, he passes or signs the North American Free Trade Agreement. And what free trade does, or the goal behind it is to encourage trade, and by eliminating tariffs. And tariffs are essentially taxes put on one country by another for doing business with them. By eliminating tariffs, the goal is it encourages trade. NAFTA was a three country partnership between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So check out the graph. You can see when NAFTA was enacted. It was signed by Bill Clinton. And study the graph and see what NAFTA, the impact NAFTA has had on U.S. trade with these two countries. Before moving on, just one quick look at the European Union. The European Union is a number of things, but one of the things that it is a free trade agreement. This is very similar to NAFTA. It's a regional type of agreement, and one of the characteristics of it is that it encourages free trade with members. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.